Did you know that a lot of very important and powerful individuals have definite plans for your future and the future of your family? These people comprise organizations like the United Nations, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberg Group, the World Health Organization, and thousands of NGOs of which you've never heard and likely never will. But they know you and have you and your loved ones in their sights. These plans they have for you go under many names, but are generally referred to as Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, and more recently, Agenda 2030.
These institutions, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, and secret societies, like Skull and Bones. They control the corporations and the governments around the world. The Illuminati are not after money. It's power they seek, and the sport is international politics. The tools are war. Money mechanics, namely the debt-based fractional reserve system. Fear. The media including the music industry, news media, and mainstream press. This plot is so vast in scale, most people will refuse its existence. It is the magnitude of this conspiracy that makes it simultaneously the easiest one to spot, but the most difficult to believe. Once you choose to look, the more you will find. This is a very disturbing and unsettling process, as you will be challenging a lifetime of belief and dogma. One of the things we can all fight and do something about is Agenda 21, or as it was renamed, Sustainable Development. Agenda 21 is a non-binding, voluntarily implemented action plan of the United Nations with regard to sustainable development. This is hard to believe, so do your own research. 1. Population reduction, soft kill technology, and food and medicine. EMF electromagnetic fields, smart meters, mobile phones and masts, dirty electricity, hydraulic fracturing or fracking. Fracking is so important because it will poison our drinking water, it will poison our air, it will poison our land. The agenda is to reduce the population and keep the remaining inhabitants of Earth in small prison, like cities. And we will go willingly to escape the devastated countryside. The Codex Alimentarius Commission is an intergovernmental body to implement the Joint Food Standards Program, which was established by a Food and Agriculture Organization in 1961. They have made natural herbal remedies illegal, and only GM alternatives are allowed. Pesticides, Monsanto and the decline of the bees. Corporations are starting the process of patenting the world's gene pool. They will end up owning nature. Herbicide-ready crops that resist weed killer and have built-in pesticides. What effect does this have on our bodies and immune system? Fluoride is a poisonous waste product of aluminium smelting, and it's deliberately put into our drinking water and toothpaste, all in the name of healthy teeth. Aspartame, the sugar alternative, rots holes in rats' brains. The smart grid is being sold to us as a means to use the world's resources in a more sustainable way. But this is a conspiracy at work again. They, the Illuminati, are using the love we have for our home against us. But we need to understand there is another agenda, and that is to first depopulate and then dominate. The tools are microchips. Companies worldwide have registered trillions of IP addresses, which is strange as there are only 7 billion people on Earth. Every product, pet and human being will have its own unique IP address. This is made possible with the invention of the RFID radio frequency identification chip, which is the same technology used by supermarkets to secure their products. CCTV infrastructure has spiraled out of control. Currently there is one CCTV camera for every 13 people in the UK. These cameras use sophisticated computer algorithms which track behavior and bring them to the attention of an operator when protocol is breached. This is only the beginning of the awakening. Welcome to the tip of the iceberg.
This diabolical plan was switched into high gear as of last September when the Pope met with the UN General Assembly to officially kick off the boots on the ground part of Agenda 21, or now Agenda 2030. This move combined the one world religion with the global governance New World Order, both designed to enslave the world population. But in order for this plan to work as smoothly and as effectively as possible, the general population must be seduced by a collection of the following 6 lies. It has been so discredited in the true scientific community, the proponents have almost become hysterical in their continued attempt to enforce climate change policy. Most recently, the Justice Department is considering legal action against deniers. Why don't they stop even to question if their science is sound? They instead use great energy to attack any scientist who dares ask questions or finds data contrary to the official line. Why is it so vitally important that they continue to promote something that clearly is, to say the least, questionable? It's because of Agenda 21 policy is built on the premise that man is destroying the earth. Climate change is their proof. To eliminate that premise is to remove all credibility and purpose for their entire agenda. They're willing to go to any length, even lies, to keep the climate change foot on your throat. On the local level, this translates into planning policy that controls energy use and the efforts to cut down on the use of cars, enforcement of building of expensive light rail train systems and bike paths, and the installation of smart meters, etc. But if you don't believe me, let them speak for themselves. This is the central driving force behind every sustainable policy initiative. It's the real force behind stack and pack smart growth cities. The fact is, in developed nations, populations are actually going down. The only real growth in the U.S. population in recent years has been from immigration, legal or otherwise. Open border immigration policy is actually implementation of Agenda 21 as part of the drive to destroy national sovereignty and nation states. Environmentalists insist that the borders must be open to allow as many to immigrate here as possible. They argue that the U.S. has a greater ability to control them and protect the environment than if we left them behind in the third world countries. That's because the Greens already have a stranglehold over our nation's industry through massive environmental regulations. In the face of the fear of overpopulation, however, studies have shown that there is no worldwide overpopulation crisis. In fact, one study insists that we could put the entire population of the world in an area the size of Texas, with a population density of Paris, France. Overpopulation and its accompanying environmental degradation is a problem primarily in countries where the poor are deprived by government to improve their conditions. Nations that refuse to legalize private property ownership for the masses, for example, are a primary reason for growing poverty. Meanwhile, sustainabilists work to keep these nations from developing or increasing energy use. by keeping them poor. Green regulations stop the building of infrastructure. They panic at the idea of increased energy use in developing nations. Instead of working to solve the real problems, the root of poverty, they exploit the excuse of overpopulation and advocate enforcing policies to drastically reduce population. China's brutal one-child policy of forced abortions and sterilization has become their model. Do you think I'm joking? Then consider these quotes from the sustainabilists. We've heard statement after statement from the UN, from members of Congress, the news media, and from Hollywood, all deriding the free market system as evil, corrupt, and a tool of the rich to hold down the poor. So now, after deciding that the poor are expendable for the sake of stopping overpopulation, suddenly the planners are worried about them if it leads to their ability to raid our bank accounts. So are they really worried about protecting the environment, or are they actually honoring the tactics of Jesse James? Redistribution of wealth is behind every policy that comes out of the UN, and now the Obama administration as well. The EPA is the attack dog to shut down entire industries like coal. It's become very difficult to operate a manufacturing business in the U.S., and nearly impossible to start a new one. Environmental protection is always the excuse, even when Obama's own State Department said the Keystone Pipeline was not an environmental threat. A couple years ago, radical Greens wielding torches demonstrated outside the home of the head of the Keystone Pipeline Company. Visions of the terror of the dark agenda. At UN's Rio Plus 20 summit held in 2012, the idea of, quote, zero economic growth, unquote, was advocated, just to keep things fair. It was stated that even the building of new roads upsets the status quo and disrupts a well-ordered society. Such idiotic ideas are the driving force behind sustainable development. Again, images of the Dark Ages come to mind. Yet consider local planning programs that cut off access roads and again discourage cars. What about the EPA's war on industry? Pretty hard to have economic growth without industry. The timber industry is killed and communities die. Dams are torn down and farmers disappear. Again, not my words. Let them tell you themselves. To the average person, the drive to stop any ability to obtain cheap energy makes no sense. People are hurting economically, jobs are lost, energy costs are skyrocketing. Any attempt to drill oil, fracking of shale gas, mining of coal are vigorously blocked by government and green policy. Yet the government spends billions of dollars on, quote, alternative energy, end quote, such as wind and solar, which provides less than 3% of our energy needs. Why? What's the motivation to put such shackles on the U.S. economic engine? The excuse is that energy use drives up CO2 emissions and accelerates global warming. The excuse necessary to, quote, harmonize the U.S. to the socialist, sustainable global noose. Many current state and local policies now are moving to increase taxes at the gas pump to keep energy costs high. In addition, Obama just issued an executive order to ban any offshore drilling of oil. So, just as the consumer started to get a break at the pump, higher taxes and Obama's action will force prices back up. As the prices rise, the, quote, planners will insist that the only solution is to enforce the building of expensive public transportation. But according to some anti-energy advocates, the fear of cheap energy goes beyond environmental protection. Energy availability helps build wealth for individuals and removes them from the roles of the dependent. This is the opposite goal of sustainable policy. Many people see the reorganization of the public school issue as separate from Agenda 21. Well, it's not. Those who are promoting what they call the agenda for the 21st century understand it's going to be a long, drawn-out process to, quote, reform a nation created on the ideals of limited government, free enterprise and individual liberty into one that unquestionably accepts government top-down control will take time and determined effort. There's no room in a sustainable society for those who believe that we were born with our rights, and our government's job is to protect those rights. The sustainable system says government will grant us our rights. To reinforce such a radical turnaround of our society requires that the children be indoctrinated to accept it. The effort started in earnest in the 1990s under the Clinton administration through the massive growth of the Department of Education in such programs as Goals 2000, School to Work, and Workforce Development Boards. The original American education system effectively provided an overall academic education from which students could choose their own futures. No longer. Today, the new curriculum has morphed into what's called Common Core. It's a state-run central curriculum that revamps schools into little more than job training and indoctrination centers. Because you see, today's public education system is also designed to strip the children of their attitudes, values, and beliefs that parents may have instilled and indoctrinate them into accepting global values, global citizenship, and a global economy based on the sustainable agenda. Little of American civics and history are taught in today's classroom, but textbooks contain whole chapters on the 5 pillars of Islam, while ignoring the 10 commandments of Christianity. The children are fed an unending diet of the evils of capitalism, the selfishness of individualism, and the social justice of redistribution of wealth. It punishes students for possessing individuality and is designed to eliminate such natural human tendencies. That is the common in Common Core. Common values, common goals, common future. Don't rock the boat of a well-ordered society. Common Core is the nationally dictated curriculum necessary for the acceptance and implementation of Agenda 21. Of course, we still elect local school boards, pretending they have some say over the curriculum. It makes us all feel safer for our children. How then do we explain the surge of Bernie Sanders and the tsunami of socialism? Well, today, nearly every adult up to the age of 40 has gone through this indoctrination, trained to accept a future chosen for them by someone else. The education system was fully outlined in a very detailed letter to Hillary Clinton from Mark Tucker of the National Center on Education and the Economy in November 1992, immediately after Bill Clinton was elected president. Tucker said, so how is healthcare connected to Agenda 21? Well, simply Google, quote, sustainable medicine, and you'll find more than 5,850,000 English language references to the subject. Read through the ideas expressed there, and you will find nearly every provision of Obamacare. An expert on sustainable medicine, the late Madeline Cosman, put it this way, quote, sustainable medicine plus sustainable development equals duty to die, end quote. Sustainable medicine makes decisions through visioning councils that determine what shall be done or not done to each body in its group in its native habitat. Sustainable medicine experts do not refer to citizens in sovereign nations, but to, quote, humans in their, quote, settlements. Sustainable medicine is the pivot around which all other sustainable development revolves. Principle number 1 of the Rio Declaration that introduced Agenda 21 is that all humans must live in harmony with nature. The translation means rationing healthcare, low technology for health treatment, and emphasis on medical care, not cure, and of course will lead to population reduction, as called for in Agenda 21. Well, these are the deceptions that are not usually discussed or connected to Agenda 21, yet they're being implemented step by step by local planners in policies that are approved by befuddled elected representatives. It's all driven through pressure from private NGO groups and funded by federal grants. That's how it's done. Constantly driven a little bit with each innocent surrounding idea. Then, without warning, Frankenstein arises from behind the smokescreen. Americans must understand and connect these dots to everyday issues so they can clearly see the root and long-term goals of these policies that are affecting our personal lives. Elected representatives at every level of government must come to understand that legislative actions have consequences far beyond their understanding. Agenda 21 is the common core, and it has already invaded every level of our society. Our battle cry must be to stop this monster or watch freedom perish.